Why did the chicken cross the road? To get out of Miami. Duh. Hey guys, Kristin from the Sports Arena here, and we are giving you our first segment of fantasy football stardom and sit-ems. So thanks for tuning in. First of all, I want to let you know, do not freak out. We have a small sample size, and if your stud last week was a James Conner, a Chubb, someone like that, you're going to start him this week, okay? So do not freak out about your studs. Put them in there. Do not make a mistake. So let's start with our quarterbacks. If you have Tom Brady this week, you are starting Tom Brady at Miami. You saw how terrible Miami was last week, how many points Lamar Jackson had. Tom Brady loves to light it up in Miami. Even though he has a 7-10 record overall in Miami, last time he was there, he put up 358 yards and 3 touchdowns. So if you have Tom Brady, do not leave him on your bench this week. He is your A1 starter. Of course, you're going to go with those top guys, Mahomes, Wentz, Prescott. If you have one of those top 10 guys, you're definitely starting him. Some of the other guys, Matt Ryan had a tough week last week, and he still exceeded his fantasy value by 3.2 points with 2 sacks and 2 interceptions, 4 sacks and 2 interceptions. And the Philadelphia secondary, sorry, Eric, made Case Keenum look like frickin' Tom Brady, Joe Montana, everyone combined into one with 380 yards and 3 touchdowns. So Matt Ryan, do not freak out. If you have Matt Ryan, you want to start him at home against Philly this week. My other guy you want to start is Aaron Rodgers. He was lackluster, but he was playing against the Chicago defense in Chicago, home opener. They're unveiling the Walter Payton statue. Aaron Rodgers absolutely lights it up against Minnesota at home. The last 3 meetings against Minnesota and Lambeau, he had a 6-to-1 touchdown interception ratio and over 300 yards in each meeting. So if you're looking at Aaron Rodgers, I'm definitely telling you to start him. If you need a reach, we didn't have a lot of guys get hurt last week, but if you had Nick Foles as your starter and you're reaching, Josh Allen is a good option this week. He's going to get you some yards on the ground. Of course, he had a pretty decent week against the Jets there, even only scoring 17 points. And Ben Roethlisberger. I really like Roethlisberger at home this week against Seattle. Seattle's defense made Andy Dalton look like the resurgence of, Steve Young, Troy Aikman, any of these guys. And they didn't even have A.J. Green. So you're going to want Ben Roethlisberger with the Seattle defense going to Pittsburgh on the road. Your sit-ems this week, on the opposite side of the ball, Russell Wilson. You are sitting Russell Wilson this week. He did not produce any offense, especially at home against a Cincinnati defense. Russell Wilson was terrible last week. And if you start him, you don't deserve to play fantasy football. Same with Marcus Mariota. He looked great last week against the Cleveland Browns defense. Cleveland had 18 penalties for 182 yards. He had great numbers, but one of those was 1 catch to Derrick Henry for 75 yards. Marcus Mariota has really no upside this year, and if you're starting him, then you're probably going to want to look for another quarterback. And if I tell you this one thing, if you have Mitchell Trubisky on your roster still, you are the worst fantasy football player ever. Drop that guy. Do not have Trubisky on your roster. Some other guys you don't want to start this week. You do not want to start Jameis. You do not want to start Joe Flacco. You do not want to start Kyler Murray. You do not want to start Sam Darnold. These are all your lower level guys. You guys, it's not hard. There's 15 quarterbacks you can start this week. Most of your leagues have 14 teams or less. So find one of those quarterbacks and start them and stay out of the bottom.
Thank you.
All right, guys, we're talking running backs now. As I said in our first segment, you're going to want to start your studs. I don't care if Nick Chubb had a bad week. I don't care if James Conner had a bad week. You do not put these guys in your bench. Your McCaffreys, your Kamaras, that's obvious stuff. So let's look at some of your running back twos, some guys you can reach for and find a little bit of depth. Matt Breida, I love Matt Breida this week. He was a stud last year with Tevin Coleman out. He's going to have a great game. They're playing Cincinnati, who gave up 2 touchdowns to Chris Carson, which Cincinnati's defense was a little stout against the run, but you're starting Matt Breida this week. He's your number 21 running back. If you need an RB2, you need to start him. Devin Singletary on the Bills. He's basically solidified himself as the starter, getting the most touches here. Frank Gore may still get the start, but you're going to want Devin Singletary. He's the number 25 running back this weekend against the Giants defense that was not very good that we've seen. You definitely want Devin Singletary. Your running back twos that I like too. I like Kerryon Johnson. The Chargers gave up 179 yards to Marlon Mack. The Chargers defense is a little banged up already in week 2. So if you have Kerryon Johnson, he's a great option at running back too. I also like Aaron Jones at home this week. And if you need a real reach or if you need a flex position, I like Adrian Peterson. Darius Geis is out, so you have Adrian Peterson and Chris Thompson. A lot of guys picked up off the waiver wire this week. I like Peterson a little better. If you're in a PPR league, Chris Thompson may be an option, but Peterson's going to get more touches. He is a veteran. He's an older guy, but he's definitely going to see some time. So if you need a reach there, let's go with Adrian Peterson. Guys, I'm staying away from. I am staying away from anybody on the Chiefs, Bears, or Eagles running backs. We do not know what this committee is going to break down to, how the touches are going to go. Everyone's so high on David Montgomery, and we saw what happened in that Thursday night game. So I don't know if Montgomery or Tariq Cohen is going to get the touches this week. Same with Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard and Damian Williams and LaShawn McCoy. If you have any option to avoid these guys and find somebody else, definitely start somebody else. You just don't know the way it's going to shake out. If you have some of these guys, you want to keep them on your bench, that's fine. But let's wait till week 3 or 4 to see who the real feature back is going to be. I'm also staying away from Carlos Hyde. He had a good game against the Saints. I don't believe in him. I don't think he's going to have a great game. They're versus Jacksonville, which is a lot better defense than the Saints. So don't let Carlos Hyde's performance last week fool you. He's not going to be a starter this week. Another sleeper you want to look at, if you didn't pick him up off the waiver wire, is Giovanni Bernard. Joe Mixon is day-to-day with that ankle sprain. He really wants to play, but even if he does play, I think he's going to have some limited playing time. So Giovanni Bernard will be a really good pickup for someone looking for someone deep. So that's your running backs. All right, guys, now we're on to the wide receivers. This spot was awesome on the waiver wire this week. You saw guys like Tyreek Hill go down, which is unfortunate because he's such an electric player. But if you could have gone on the waiver wire and picked up, a DJ Chark, who from Jacksonville had 24 points last week. John Ross, Terry McLaurin had a great game last week. So there's a lot of depth on the waiver wire this week. If you didn't have Hollywood Brown, you need to get Hollywood Brown. I'm sure he was the top claim in a lot of leagues. I am starting Hollywood Brown this week. If you have a Rams receiver, you better start all 3 of those. A lot of guys have Kupp and Cooks on the bench or on their team. You want to start them both. The order right now with the Rams receivers and ranking, you're going Robert Woods, Brandon Cooks, Cooper Kupp. They are all within 1 point of each other projection-wise, though. So if you have these guys, you want to start them against that sloppy New Orleans secondary. Another guy I like, and I said this in our preseason show, I really like Tyrell Williams. And I even said this when Antonio Brown was still on the team. Tyrell Williams is a great talent. He was very quietly productive in LA when the 4 years he was there. If you have Tyrell Williams or you're able to get him off the waiver wires, you're going to want to start this guy. Chris Godwin's a guy you're going to want to start too. Mike Evans was barely around anywhere in week 1 for the Bucs. So Chris Godwin, if you have him, you want to start him. I owe an apology to Sammy Watkins and Eric for saying that he sucked his entire career when he had an outstanding game last week. He is your number 7 wide receiver this week. So I take back what I said. If you have Sammy Watkins, you better start him. And if you have not picked up Mecole Hardman, you need to get him. This rookie is going to be taking Tyreek Hill's spot for the next couple weeks, however long Tyreek Hill is out. Mecole Hardman is going to see a lot of looks, and I like him better than Demarcus Robinson at this position. So if you're really reaching for a wide receiver 2 or a flex position, look at Mecole Hardman. Another guy that has a great upside this week is Mohamed Sanu. He is your number 54 receiver, but if you want him in a flex position, he's going to do great against that terrible Eagles secondary there. So you should have gotten on your waiver wire this week and picked up some of these guys, but the receiver position is really deep this year, and you can find some guys. So that's who I like. Guys I'm staying away from. Kenny Stills. He did have a touchdown last week. He is their 3rd option there behind DeAndre Hopkins, who's getting all the catches, and then Will Fuller. So if you can avoid Kenny Stills, do not start him. I'm also staying away from D.D. Westbrook. He's number 1 in Jacksonville, but I do not know what Minshew is going to do. He had a great week last week, but we always know once you get a little film on these rookies, they go back down. And Nick Mullins is an example of last year at the 49ers. He had a great starting week, and then the next week he wasn't very productive. Staying away from him, and it's just going to sound weird, but I'm kind of iffy on these Minnesota receivers against this resurgent Green Bay defense. Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, it's hard to say to not put them in your starting lineup, but if you have other options there, I would kind of maybe think about staying away from these guys. And surprisingly enough, I'm going to put Jarvis Landry on my bench this week. The Browns could not get anything going offensively. Landry's not getting many touches. They like Higgins. They like Beckham better. So I'm staying away from Jarvis Landry as well. So those are your wide receivers, and if you didn't listen to me, you better get on the waiver wire week after week because there's a lot of good receivers out there. All right, guys, tight ends. If you did not pick up TJ Hawkinson this week and somebody else got him, well, you're out of luck, and they're probably going to win. Hockenson looked awesome last week. I'm not saying he's going to repeat that performance, but I think he's going to be a solid tight end with Matthew Stafford. We actually saw him at the Combine. He's fast, he's big, he's got good hands. TJ Hockenson should have been your #1 target this week. He's going to be awesome. You want him to start. Same with Delaney Walker. I unfortunately left him on my bench last week for O.J. Howard, which was a dumb decision by me. Delaney Walker is going to have a good year. He is Marcus Mariota's favorite target. So if you have Delaney Walker, you better be starting him. And a guy I talked about also in the preseason show on the Raiders, Darren Waller. This guy is your #9 tight end this week. He's in an offense that saw Jared Cook have massive number of touchdowns last year. He's on the field like 93% of the time. You want Darren Waller. If you do not pick him up on waivers and he's still available, go get this guy, especially if you had Hunter Henry, who's going to be out this week. So if you need a replacement, look for a Darren Waller, look for a TJ Hockenson. I'm staying away from Kyle Rudolph, far, far away from Kyle Rudolph against that Minnesota defense. He is only a red zone guy here, and they're not going to get in the red zone very much against that Green Bay defense. So I'm not really high on any of the Minnesota guys this week, any of the receivers or the tight ends. Jason Witten, if you have him, drop him. The guy's like 400 years old. He's not going to catch anything. He's solely there for blocking purposes. So, sorry, Taylor. Jason Witten sucks. Drop him off your team. And I'm also staying away from Trey Burton this week. He was non-existent week 1, and you know what? He's going into Denver with that defense. Stay away from Trey Burton. Again, Mitchell Trubisky's throwing him the ball, so he's not going to catch it because Trubisky sucks. Now, my one tip for you guys this week, Jamison Crowder. If you need a flex guy, he was one of the top waiver wire pickups this week. He's my favorite guy. I'm putting him in my flex on 2 of my teams. He had 17 catches. If you're in a PPR league, this guy got you almost 30 points last week. Jamison Crowder is my flex position of the week. Now, my favorite position of all on a fantasy roster is defense, and people think it's crazy, but it's like you get to root for a whole unit when they're on the field. You're not just rooting for one guy to catch the ball; it's the entire unit. I love defenses. Your #1 defense this week is New England at Miami. For obvious reasons. Miami sucks. If you have New England, you better be playing them. The round out the top 5, you have Baltimore, Chicago, Houston, and Buffalo. Buffalo is quietly going to be a really good defense this year, so if you can get them and keep them in your lineup, Buffalo is going to be really good. A lot of leagues dropped Cleveland last week. My Yahoo League told me about 47,000 teams dropped Cleveland's defense. I think they're going to be okay Monday night against the Jets. They're your #9 defense. So if you have a crummier defense matchup this week, a Pittsburgh or New Orleans, who I'm saying stay on the bench, you could pick up a Cleveland, a Jacksonville, even a Chargers. The Rams is one funny defense I'm staying away from this week. The Rams are a great defensive unit overall. This week they are your #23 defense versus New Orleans because you know Drew Brees is going to put up a lot of points on them. So stay away from the Rams there. Stay away from Seattle at Pittsburgh. You know, you're going to want one of these top 10 guys, but definitely Carolina against Tampa Bay, and Carolina is going to be a great defense. I think Jameis Winston's going to have a couple more interceptions. So, but if you have New England, ultimate start this week.